Hello there, BookTube. My name is Daniel. Welcome back to my channel, Guilty Feet. Yeah, I've gotten over them. Today, I'm going to tell you about my week a little bit and then take you through all the books I've read since last week. So I'm wearing a nice smart shirt. My wife and I have been out for dinner this evening. It's Thursday evening. Hopefully I'll get this up Friday. And we had our wedding anniversary this week. It was our 30th wedding anniversary, which seems unbelievable that we've been married for 30 years, but there it is. Other things going on this week. Tomorrow night, Saturday night, I'm going to a book event. This is my second time attending this thing, and it's called a book surf. And it's something somebody started a few years ago. I've forgotten the names of all the people who started, but I saw it on Facebook and I signed on. I went to one in Tel Aviv, and I'm going to another one tomorrow night. And 8 people come. And these are not people that I know. I've been, they found me on Facebook and joined a WhatsApp group, and I got invited. I'm going, and 8 people come, and everyone gives a reading on a theme. So they pick a theme for the evening. We all turn up, and so the last one I went to, the theme was romance, and I read a section, one of my favorite sections from Anne Tyler's book, Searching for Caleb. And other people, someone read a news article, someone read some Dorothy Parker poems, someone read something they'd written themselves. It's all, and then we sit and we discuss each one, and it's sort of a fun, sort of bookish evening. And I was me putting myself out there a little bit and going something that would not necessarily been in my comfort zone. And I enjoyed that one, so I'm going again tomorrow. Not tomorrow, sorry, Saturday night. And the theme this time is awards. And I kind of take these things fairly literally. So I'm going to be reading from You'll Never Eat Lunch in This Town Again by Julia Phillips. And it's very early on. I think it's the prologue to the book. This is a gossip. This is a memoir, gossip of her time in Hollywood. She was a producer, and she produced The Sting, and she produced Close Encounters of the Third Kind. A Taxi Driver, maybe? Did I get that wrong? Anyway, she was a somebody in those, yes, Taxi Driver as well. She was a somebody back in the day, and then fell out of favour, and then wrote this book, which she really did never eat lunch in this town again, about her drug use and her broken marriage and lots of name dropping and gossip. So I've got a lovely section in the beginning where she's at the Academy Awards waiting to hear whether she wins for The Sting, and goes on to become the first ever woman to win an Oscar as a producer for Best Film. Anyway, so I'm going to take that and read that, and I'm interested to see what everyone else comes up with. Okay, let me take you through what I read this week, and I'm going to try and do it quickly because these things, I tend to drag these things on. Okay, so when we last met, I was reading Surrender by Bono, and I finished this, and it was a brisk read. And listen, I understand Bono is not everyone's cup of tea, but I kind of like him. I'm not a crazed U2 fan, sort of mainly there for the Joshua Tree. I wasn't necessarily into them for the earlier stuff. The Joshua Tree blows up and number ones all around the world. With or without, you went to number one in America, and massive hits in the UK, and I like that. And then what was formative for me was I was in seminary in Israel when I was 19 years old, me and a bunch of other friends, good friends of mine, and someone sent us out a copy. So they bought the album and then recorded it onto an old cassette, and they sent it to us in Israel, and we sat all around. We had one cassette player in our dorm, and we all sat around listening to Rattle and Hum, which was the new album, which is live, had new songs, had live versions of previous songs, and a huge big double album. And I just remember us all sitting around this tape recorder listening to it, and then listening to it again, and then we each took it off and listened to it on our own. And that was that was a shared experience where we all listened to this new key album that had just landed, and that was very powerful for me, and I love that. And then when I was back in London University, Achtung Baby was the new release, and that's also a fantastic album, which I should dig out again. And then it dropped in and out of them, the singles and things, and I like the album All You Can't Leave Behind as well. Anyway, that's me and U2, and I get that Bono sometimes comes across a little bit insufferable with all his good deeds. But reading the story, you find that the key things that are important to him are his wife, who he married when he was younger than I am. When I got married, he was like 21 years old when he got married, and he's still married to her, Ali. He's got 4 kids. He's a family guy, and he was carrying a lot of names around that he just was obviously going to end up dropping a few, and constantly. About the time I had dinner with Johnny Cash and his wife, and then I was hanging out with Bill and Melinda, and then Barack and Michelle invited me to the White House, and then it's just a constant stream of names being dropped. But you know what? He's kind of earned it. So I don't necessarily begrudge him. That's also part of why you read something like this, because you want to hear about all these things. So there's good stuff on him and the band. Great stuff on, and that's that's the heart of why I'm reading something like this, to read those early days, what they formed, how they came up with these songs, and what it was like going on tour, and what's like breaking America, and all those kind of things are super fascinating to me. And then later on, you get all the charitable work he did, and on the one hand, who wants to hear another privileged rock star going on about saving the planet? But he kind of really does do things, and forms boards and works with people and makes things happen, and pesters the people who can make decisions on things, and may well have been. I need to get another perspective to find out how worthwhile what he did was, but at least in his telling, he seems to have had some impact on the Bush government's decision to put more money into fighting HIV in Africa, and other things that he's championed and worked on over the years, debt relief. These are all good things. You can hate the man if you like, but you can't begrudge him wanting to make the world a better place. So yeah, there was the one thing that Bono has that we, as someone who brought up in England, even though my parents are Irish like Bono, but in England the one thing you're not allowed to be is too earnest, and you two always were a little bit earnest, whether it was because they were young men of faith. At least 3 of the 4 members of the band were pretty tied to their Christian faith in the early days at least, and have followed that through to some extent, or whether just earnest about the music, or whether he was earnest about his charity work. It's British people are not fans of earnestness, but once you decide you're going to take that at face value, I thought this was an entertaining enough read. I'm going to pause because it's something I wanted to read out a bit to you about him talking about his drummer in U2, Larry Mullen Jr. I just want to find that. I'm going to read it out because it's good stuff. Yeah, so this is from the chapter called Sunday Bloody Sunday. It's 40 songs, one story. So each chapter is named after one of the songs and a little quote of the lyrics. So this is the chapter 12, which is Sunday Bloody Sunday. Starts like this: all musical instruments are useful for love and exhortation. Only one is essential for war: the drums. The drums are thin-skinned, stretched tightly over hollow volumes, mostly of wood, which gives them their earthiness, their sexiness, slapping without the tickling. The hand of the stick bounces across the skin of the drums, throwing the listener forward into a dance, into a physical response. For war, and in particular marching to war, wood was replaced by metal. The snare, as it's known for good reason, supplies body armour to the already athletic, muscular choices available. There is a particular violence built into the snare drum, and the rat-a-tat of a military tattoo was exactly what we were looking for in the opening of Sunday Bloody Sunday. I don't ever want to be at war with Larry Mullen, but I don't ever want to go to war without him. From a very junior age, Larry Mullen has explained his craft and art like this: I hit things for a living. And he does. He can hit people too, not physically, but psychically. Most people who enter a room with Larry Mullen find him striking, in the sense that he is a stylish, good-looking member of the species, but also in the sense that he can be suspicious of why you're in his gaze, of your intentions, your being in the room, and perhaps on a bad day, your reason for being anywhere at all. Drummers are born, not made. If you're willing to open your heart a little bit to that kind of stuff, then this book is full of it. I enjoyed it. Not for everybody, but Surrender by Bono. Please don't pick this up, and had a thoroughly fun time reading it. Then I went from that to, I think, this. Wow. This tiny novel. So I read Small Things Like These, which I keep, whenever I try and think of the title of Claire Keegan, Small Things Like These, I only think of Blink-182's All the Small Things. Not that. Small Things Like These, which was the novel I came to, it was shortlisted for the book prize this year, and I came to it after everyone else had read it. It's only 100 pages. Loved it, loved everything about it. And then a few people had written, and this is why I love BookTube, well, you read that, you need to go back and read her earlier novel, Foster. This is barely a novel. I mean, the whole thing is 88 pages, tiny print. This is less than an hour's reading, and it took me that long because it was hard to see the words through my tears. I pretty much started crying at the beginning and wept and sobbed my way through the whole thing. I think it is just a perfect novella, an exquisite piece of work. It's like a 400-page book. Okay, no, I don't exaggerate. Like a 240 to 300-page normal novel that you've read a million of, except she's then gone back and taken out all the bits that no one really needs, and you're just left with the absolute concentrated perfection where every word is chosen and in its place, and the whole thing is almost computer generated, because the precision with which it can access and trigger your emotions is astonishing to me. It's just so sparsely written, where every single word is the right word in the right place. And I'm sorry if this feels like I'm overpraising and overselling it, but this was such a work of beauty. It's a work that can be studied. I understand it is already on the curriculum in the Irish Leaving Certificate for Literature, equivalent of A-levels, I guess, in the UK, and whatever you do in 11th, 12th grade, if you're studying literature still at that point in America. But what a joy to read this, to have this like short book to be able to read, but it's so rich and so worthy of poring over. Just the language is beautiful, and every bit about it, right up until the end, which is puts the punch in punchline. But it's not a joke. It's just a work of beauty. I really love this, and I'm going to go back and now read Claire Keegan's. There's two earlier collections of short stories, and I showed you I bought that. I've got one of the short stories which I bought as a Faber single, but it's actually part of an earlier collection. I'm going to try and find those. Frozen, I cannot give this anything but my highest possible. Foster, sorry, I cannot give this anything but my highest possible recommendation. It's a tiny book. I had to pay up for it. They're selling this for £9 for I guess that's what you pay to go to the cinema. But even cinema, any movie going to the cinema would take you longer than this would to read. But worth every second of your time. Really, Foster, Claire Keegan, just wonderful, wonderful. One of my favourite reads of I don't know how long I'm going to be forcing this into the hands of anyone I come across, starting with my wife this weekend. And then after that, another graphic novel. This was Ed Brubaker, an early collection called Seen the Crime. This is a reprinted deluxe edition, but this is from 2012, so that the original comics came out in the early 2000s. And it's noir, so a story, if you're familiar at all with sort of classic noir tropes of families and relations, taking incest is always a theme, and mothers protecting children and children turning bad, and the private eye down on his luck with a dark past investigating, and when he thinks there's no more case, when the case fizzles out and there's nothing left to investigate, but he won't let it go because he's got to get the answers. All these tropes, if you have any love for crime fiction, show up in this scene of the crime, and it kind of made me think whether I give things like this a pass, because it's I love comic books, I love graphic novels. Would this actually stand up if it was a novel, or would it be so well trodden and it's things that I'd seen a million times before in novels? That I may, I feel warmer to it as a comic book than I would have done if this was just a novel. I don't know. There may be a smaller, in the Venn diagram of people who read comic books or graphic novels and the people who actually have read sort of classic noir, Chandler and Hammett and modern examples, purveyors of noir in the late 20th and early 21st century, may not be a big crossover between these two groups. And I'm guessing that Brubaker and his his co-writers and artists here have read those kind of things that I've read. But yeah, so I enjoyed this. It really made me wonder whether I would judge it more harshly had they written this as a novel. Seen the Crime by, I'm pleased to have it in this lovely deluxe hardback edition, which doesn't fit on any of my shelves, so it has to go into the other room with all the comic books. Pleased to have it, but yeah, I picked up at a good price, so I'm not worried about adding something like this to the collection. But made me think a little bit about noir in comics. It seems like a good match, and it seems like a good medium for this genre, but maybe it's just because the thrill of finding the genre I love in this accessible and fun format with visuals and there are a lot of references to Chinatown in here and also stuff you've seen before, but I kind of liked it. And then after that I started, I'll whiz through this tomorrow, this wonderful book that I bought as a cover purchase. This is The Work of Art in the Age of Mechanical Reproduction by Walter Benjamin. It's actually got 3 essays in here, I believe, so that's the first essay. And then there is Franz Kafka on the 10th anniversary of his death, and another essay called Picturing Proust, and the whole thing is done and dusted in 110 pages or so. So I'll get through this tomorrow, and then I might do the Tarantino or the Lincoln Highway. I can only get a few more books in, I guess, before the end of the year. And we're going to London on the 22nd. I don't want to take loads of books with me, so I have to decide what I'm going to read between now and the 22nd of December. And then when I get to London, I'll probably buy stuff. So I might take a couple of books with me, but really I want to leave myself open to spontaneous purchases, end of the year purchases, hoping that Waterstones will have its half price hardback sale running on Boxing Day. I think it did last year, and Barnes & Noble in the US did, and I stumbled across that and spent a ton of money in Barnes & Noble in Union Square, but I'm hoping to go to Waterstones on Boxing Day and see if they're also doing half price on all hardbacks. But that's end of the month still. Hope you're all keeping well. Have a great week. God bless. Bye.